Now, the NHS scandal at Stafford Hospital raised the issue that NHS whistleblowers need to be able to speak out to ensure standards of care.
Well, now, thanks to whistleblowers in the private sector, a Daybreak investigation has uncovered heartbreaking stories of abuse and below-standard care at homes for the elderly, as Fiona Phillips found out.
3 women working at 3 care homes all made the career-changing decision to blow the whistle. Sarah lost her job after warning of dangerously low staffing levels. We've concealed her identity as she hopes to find a new job.
I can't understand how a manager or a care home can say that they've safeguarded the residents with just one carer at night.
Catherine quit the industry after years working in many care homes. She raised the alarm about one where conditions were impossible to ignore.
There were several residents, or at least 2 residents, who were genuinely crying because they were so cold. It's disgusting. They're not in that home to be cold. They're there to be looked after and cared for.
Neve gave evidence in the trial of a home manager found guilty of willful neglect. She's now petitioning for compulsory training for all care workers.
This home was not an isolated case. I've worked in quite a few, and I know that the practices and the poor standards are commonplace. These are people's mothers and fathers, and we are neglecting them.
Well, Fiona Phillips is here, along with Jenny Moore, who was banned from visiting her mother-in-law at a care home after making complaints. And Jenny, what exactly happened? Because I mean, what I found most distressing in what I read, which probably doesn't seem at first, is that your mother-in-law was wearing other people's clothes when you went in to see her, and that made me shudder in a way.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, that is commonplace. It's not considered out of the ordinary. In my eyes, excuse me, I'm getting over the cold.
She's got a horrible cold.
A resident goes into a care home, all they have got left in the world are a few belongings, their clothes and their family. And in my situation, 2 of those things have been taken away from my relative.
What else concerns you about your mother's treatment?
I haven't got concerns about physical abuse, as you've been covering, I believe, this week. But it doesn't have to be physical to be a form of abuse.
No.
Just general basic standards of care.
And the point is, you kept making... We'll hear what the care home have got to say about it actually in a minute to give it a better balance, but you made these complaints, didn't you, over and over and again, and eventually, what did they say to you, the care home? They invited you in for a meeting and said what?
Yes, they invited me on another matter, and when I went in, I was faced with 3 members of that company, and they issued me with a 12-month habitual and vexatious complainant ban. Yeah,
now this eventually went to the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman came down in your favour, but I've got to ask you, I mean, did you become a nuisance? Were you rude to them in any way?
I was never rude. As far as I was concerned, I had a very good relationship with the staff there. It was basic things like the commode not being emptied. She hadn't had a wash. She got out of the home twice, and a member of the public brought her back. The staff didn't even know she'd got out.
Anyway, the Ombudsman came down on your side, as I say, and you were eventually allowed back into the home to see her, but there was quite a gap, wasn't it? I mean, what can people do in Jenny's circumstances if they're concerned? I mean, what's the advice?
I so identify with that. Yeah. I used to find her nails were never done. She was in old men's clothes that are just, horrible. You know, shoes were missing that you'd bought for her to make her... You know, dignity's really important. You wouldn't want to sit there with someone else's clothes on, so why should someone who's older? However, so if you do have a complaint, if you're funding your own care, then you should go to the provider in the first instance. If it's council care and you suspect abuse or neglect, which wasn't happening in Jenny's case, then you can call the council in. But otherwise, yeah, you deal with the provider, and if you're not satisfied with the provider's answers, then you do what Jenny's done and call in the local government ombudsman to intervene for you.
Though, haven't you? But...
Well, Jenny spent ages doing this, and it because it's your mum. Your mum has loved you, brought you up, cared for you, and she's not being cared for in the way that you want her to be. And you become obsessed with it, don't you?
And let's just give a right of reply to the care home, actually.
Care home involved, which I haven't named, but
well, because they did ban Jenny from going on, but they say that Jenny is the only relative that they've ever asked not to visit one of their care homes, and it wasn't because she complained about the services. Is what they say. The temporary restriction was pending a meeting with Mrs Moore to discuss serious concerns about her behaviour. All of Jenny's other family and friends continued to be regular visitors. They said that the Moore family has not transferred care responsibilities because your mum is still there, isn't she? It wasn't it wasn't anything to do with abuse or anything. It just are these things that are important.
The good thing is it's resolved now, but it does raise a big issue, which is
about how other people do it
as well.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to you for talking about it. And you're going to talk a little bit later on, I think, in the programme as well.
Thank you
both very much
Thank
indeed
you.
for your time.
Really interesting. Thank you.